I'm thrilled that you're here, and especially because today's topic is 100% hands down, absolutely vital to your pageant success. And not just to your pageant success, but I would argue that this topic of confidence is vital to your overall success, especially off stage. Okay. So today we have Keerah Yeowang. Yeowang. Oh my gosh, I'm always messing up her name. I'm going to get it right, I promise. Joining us today, she is United States of America's Ms. And she was a client of mine, we think it's over a year ago now, and was in the inner circle and had a lot that she already brought to the inner circle. But then over the last several years, so many things have grown and developed, and all the stuff that she's working on today, she's going to be able to share a lot of that with you too. So that's going to be fun. And we're going to be talking about keys to confidence. Okay. So really one of the things that I love about Keerah is that her focus is on the development of women, truly empowering you, not just with the tools, which that's important too, but also from the inside out. And so you're going to get to hear a little bit about her story, likely, and then she's going to share with you her confidence keys as well, which is going to be a lot of fun. So she is the founder of the Powder Room Finishing School, which I highly, highly recommend that you check that out. And it's on Facebook as well. And she empowers women through workshops and especially young girls through her Powder Room Finishing School workshops. So she's got lots of fun things happening, but we're here today to talk specifically about confidence, which she brings insights from makeup, the makeup industry, which when you see her makeup, you will know why, and from modeling. So she's done modeling and fashion and pageantry. So the 360 degrees of all things beauty, Keerah knows this very well. Okay, so I want to introduce you to my now friend, former client, Keerah Yeowang. I probably said your name wrong again, Keerah, but thank you so much for being here. Could you pronounce your name for us? Because I keep screwing it up.
It's Keerah Yeowang.
Yeowang. Thank you so much. Keerah Yeowang. Thank you so much for being here. It is such a delight. You know, when I got to bump into you in Milwaukee, she was judging the Petite USA pageant, and my team and I were there supporting our clients and helping backstage. And as you passed by, I was like, oh, I think that's Keerah. There she goes. And we hadn't met in person. We've only worked virtually before. So it was just so fun to be able to reconnect with you and as you said, kind of have that full circle moment.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Like you said, I couldn't believe, I mean, you saw me first, but as soon as you were like, hi, you came over humbly, of course. And I almost like split my wig. I was like, pageant royalty. Pageant royalty. You guys, Cherish Alicia, she is absolutely amazing. And I'm just so honored to meet you. And thank you so much for having me.
Yes, it's my pleasure. Well, I'm thrilled for you to share a bit about, could you talk a bit about your platform and how this legacy project for the Powder Room Finishing School, how this all came about and what you're doing with it now? Let's start there.
So my platform is called Be Your Own Kind of Beautiful. And that basically stemmed from my own confidence issues I had when I was a kid. I'm sure you noticed in person, I'm 6 feet tall without shoes. I'm dark skinned. So I had this huge complex growing up. I used to practice shrinking in the mirror. I had huge boats for feet. So I had this like severe insecurity. And it wasn't until I got into an environment that affirmed me that I started growing in my confidence. So I knew that was what I wanted to impart into other young girls, because only 4% of girls, according to Dove, find themselves beautiful. So that is what basically stemmed into my platform, and my project called the Powder Room Finishing School started as the Powder Room Facebook group. And I share with you, I kind of had a divine pivot moment where God like turned the light bulb on, and I had all of these girls in front of me that I saw on a daily basis, because my regular job, I'm an HR administrator at a school. And long story short, I won this modeling competition, and I never had so many inquiries to do runway training. that's when all the pieces kind of came together for what I was doing in the Powder Room Facebook group. And God brought me back to what I had been doing back in 2015. And it was just a confirmation moment that, hey, this is what I want you to do. This is where I want you to go with your platform and with your project.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. I'm always saying that God will direct us, but we have to take the steps. We have to take action in order for Him to be able to say, no, no, that's not quite right. It's over here. It's over here. And so it sounds like you were a little unsettled, like you were like, something's not clicking. And He's like,
Yes.
yeah, look over here. Yeah, look over here. Right? Was that your experience?
Oh, absolutely. These girls have been in my face for years. And it's crazy because I did a fashion show back in 2015, and those same girls, the same parents, administrators, teachers, they would ask, like, Keerah, when are you going to do your etiquette? When are you going to do this or that? But I really honestly didn't think I had what it took at the time to take these girls under my wing and mentor them that way. But as I've gone through my pageant journey, pageantry requires you to do some like self work, some internal work, almost some spiritual work. That it wasn't until kind of I've come along that journey, even being in your group, getting training, that I was able to kind of craft it a bit more. And I got a lot more clarity in where God wanted me to go with it, for sure.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's awesome. Well, congratulations on your title, United States of America's Ms. Could you share a little bit about that system, USOA, and why you were attracted to compete in that specific pageant?
So a USOA is a new pageant, United States of America's pageant systems. It has been around for 5 years, and we are one of the fastest growing pageants in the industry right now. So go USOA. If you are considering it, I highly recommend you join the team of Empower, Inspire, and Uplift. It is an amazing pageant to join. It is so much support you get. It is a very organized system. And what I really liked and enjoyed about, especially at nationals, is that everyone was celebrated, everyone was loved, we got so many sponsored gifts. And this was prior to even winning. Like each delegate in each each delegate in each division got so many things, and it was just an amazing, beautiful experience. And for me, I'm not a pageant vet. This is my first pageant. This was my first pageant actually competing in about 12 years. It was an amazing experience. It has been an amazing experience, and I definitely recommend, especially for Ms. Contestants 29 and up that are not married. I definitely recommend you join the USOA team.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. You're right about this pageant has been growing like crazy. And in a positive way. One of the things I notice about them is that they put such a focus on social media, but also on the development of all of their contestants. So I love the way that you're describing, like, join the team, because I'm sure it really does feel like you're on a team. You're getting all of that support and all of that encouragement as you're going through the pageant system. So that's awesome. Yeah, I love hearing that. Cool. Well, I'm excited to hear about your keys to confidence. So I want to just dive right in. Are we ready to go, Keerah?
Yes. Ready.
Let's do it. Cool. All right. The 3 keys to true confidence.
All right, ladies. So again, my platform is confidence. I work with young girls with confidence from the inside out. So my first nugget to share is that confidence is a learned skill. I know that we think of people that just have this certain je ne sais quoi, they just carry themselves a certain type of way. But it is a muscle. It is a learned skill, just like learning a language, mastering your field of expertise. It also applies to pageantry. As I mentioned before, I first got back into pageantry my first pageant I've ever done was 12 years ago. And I decided then, after I got off stage, that this was not for me. It's never to return. It was never a passing thought. And I remember my mom, she called me one day about 2 years ago. And I'm an adult, you guys, ladies, excuse me. I'm 30 years old. I just made 30 in July. So at the time I was 28, my mom called me. And of course I'm scrolling on my phone on Instagram. And she's like, Keerah, I signed you up for a pageant. And I'm like, respectfully, I'm an adult. So I remember going through that with my mom. I didn't start off with passion for pageantry. I kind of jumped and learned pageantry on the way down. So for me, the preparation was key because my last memory of pageantry was not necessarily on a good note. It left me feeling very insecure with my own speaking skills. It made me feel a bit incompetent, and it gave me this fear of speaking in front of people. So I knew a part of my prep for me in order to gain confidence was to assess my strengths and my weaknesses. So I knew my strengths off top. I've been a makeup artist for 8 years. So me presenting myself, me being able to do my wardrobe, my hair, and makeup, I got that, right? I know that modeling, I've modeled for 10 years. So I know that is another area of expertise for me. So I lean into my strengths, play up my strengths, and develop where you are not as strong at, what I would consider my weaknesses, which was my interview skills, which was me being able to speak. I was a scaredy cat, y'all. So I remember when I first got into the pageant I was going to compete in, didn't compete, but someone told me that, hey, there's no room for shyness in pageantry. So I knew then and there, like, Keerah, you have to grow in this thing. If you're going to do it 150%. So that means investing in the areas that you don't feel as secure in. So for me, that was especially interview. So number two, I have. Oh, let me go back to number one. I'm sorry. So the it factor isn't just some magical thing that happens. You know, the girl that has the je ne sais quoi, the girl that has this and that going for her, she just has that aura. Oddly enough, even if she doesn't understand what the formula is, even if she thinks she just has it, or you think she just naturally is confident, usually it comes from a specific formula, right? So you prepare yourself, and that leads to a skill set, and you become confident in that skill set, and from that skill set, from that confidence, radiates the it factor, radiates that aura, if that makes sense. So now for number two, what I have is to understand the importance of self talk. I remember during pageant week. So for me, how I think of pageant week is kind of like the round three, right? Round three of a fight. I don't know if you all are familiar with Mortal Kombat, and the last round they're like, fight or finish him. That's like your last round. So my self talk was so important to me during pageant week, during that final showdown, I guess, if you will. So I remember hearing a lot of talk like possibilities, what ifs, potential. And also, I heard a lot of no matter what, XYZ, you're still blah, blah, blah. For me, in my head, what that sounded like to me was pre rejection, right? I know that's a weird way to think of it, but how I was thinking, I'm like, that sounds like pre-rejection to me. So I did hear it, and I know it was from well-meaning people, and it meant well. It was to comfort me, but I also let it go in one ear and out the other, right? I blacklisted those types of thoughts, whether it was internal on my own, from my own self, or from external people. Why? Because I didn't make it, I didn't come all the way to this point. I didn't make it all the way to the finish line to compromise how I'm showing up, right? So for me in my head, how I was thinking of it is, if I let that thought, let those words, even those kind words, settle into my heart, I will feel like I almost have to compromise or not give my best. So if I did not win, it wouldn't feel like such a blow to me, right? Does that make sense? It wouldn't feel like such a blow, but I could not think that way or allow that to settle into even my own spirit, because I'm going to show up as my best self because I have done that prep work. I have worked to gain these public speaking skills. I was doing so many different things. Even with my charm school, I remember I would see my girls about 3 times a week, about 30 plus girls a week. About 10 minutes out before we finished, I had them interview me several times a week. I work at a school, so I would have the principal interview me. I would have the administrative assistant interview me. I would go into different classes when they had free time. I would interview in front of the students just so I can gain these skills and gain this confidence in these skills. So I'm not going to make it to the finish line and start to compromise my performance because of a what if. I'm going to give my best because I have confidence. I know that I have what it takes to be able to take it home, right? So if I have that winning mindset, that mindset of confidence, I'm going to show up as my best self. I'm going to show up as United States of America's Miss. I'm going to show up acting the part, being the part, and the results will speak for themselves. I'm going to let the chips fall where they may. I'm not responsible for the results, but I'm not going to let any talk, any chatter compromise how I'm showing up. So, number 3 that I have, and this is our last point. Oh, also, see, I'm missing each point every time. So again, you're gonna want to be your own biggest cheerleader, and also, I know I'm saying a lot about your mindset, what you think, how you feel, how you present yourself. Confidence is a journey. It is not a destination. So you're going to have ups, you're going to have downs. And when you have those down times or down days, give yourself grace. So this applies to your entire pageant journey. This applies to life. This applies to pageant week. If you're feeling some type of way about yourself, it's okay to give yourself that moment and pick yourself back up. So now on to number 3. Lastly, my point is the secret to the sauce is that you make the sauce. You make the sauce. It's yours, right? I have this analogy. So if you had like 3 or 4 or 5 pitchers of Kool-Aid, right? Each person is making this Kool-Aid. You have the same ingredients for this Kool-Aid. Oh, sorry. You have the same ingredients for this Kool-Aid. Everybody's Kool-Aid is going to come out different. Why? Because everyone is different. Everyone has their unique, every woman has her unique fingerprint, her unique way she shows up, you're yourself. And the next person is the next person. So don't compare yourself to anyone, because comparison is the thief of joy. And the only time, like, so what if another woman has the same dress as you, the same colors as you, she has a similar platform or charity as you? She's not you. She's not you. And you are your own superpower, especially when you have worked to understand your strengths and to understand your weaknesses. And when that goes down to the heart level, to the conviction level, when you really believe that, when you have that positive self-talk, you will show up that way, right? And the only time someone will be better than you, quote unquote, another woman will have something over you, which they don't, is if you look around and you compare, right? You say, oh, we all have the same ingredients. So what makes me different? So you stop your process, right? So you're forfeiting your sauce. Don't forfeit your sauce, right? So another thing for me, I modeled for 10 years, right? I come from modeling. That was my first ever dream. I wanted to be a runway model. So for runway modeling and pageantry, they're so different. They're so different. So although I had this skill, this expertise, and this industry that kind of crosses over a bit, it was still different. So I had to train myself how to walk like a pageant queen. From what I have noticed, pageant walking is a lot more charismatic. It's a lot more theatrical. It almost reminds me a bit of 90s modeling. If you all have ever seen 90s modeling shows, how the women were very interactive. They smiled, they laughed. It was a lot more interactive as opposed to how runway is today. So my self-taught when I would practice modeling would be, hey, this is what a queen looks like. I'm literally walking, thinking in my head, this is what a queen looks like. Do you see how your next United States of America made that turn, right? So that all of that adds up to each other. All of that adds together, and that's what helps to make you your best self. Every appearance, every volunteering opportunity, all the prep work adds and accumulates to that skill set, so you can show up in confidence and be able to perform at your best level. So that's what I have to share about my 3 keys to confidence.
That was incredible. I love this, Keerah. Wow. And you know what? Something that I was really struck, because, a lot of us sitting here have heard, confidence, okay, and everybody's like, oh, believe in you. But what I love is that you gave really very specific, very pointed ways that we can actually develop confidence. And one of the very first one that struck me is that you actually said, your interview was your weakest link. That was the thing that you're like, that's where I need to build a skill set around. I have skills around these other areas, so I have confidence around those things. This is the area. But then I heard you say, So I did an interview here. I did an interview here. I was doing interview. And I was like, that is the key right there. It's like,
Yes.
get the skills, learn, prepare, dive
Mm-hmm.
into the areas where you feel like you're lacking the most confident, learn it.
Mm-hmm.
And then place yourself in the position to be forced to practice it, because just
Yes.
learning the skill set without implementing it isn't all that helpful, and it doesn't feel
Yes.
good. I'm guessing it probably felt pretty awkward at first doing those
Absolutely.
interviews. Like, what was that like? I mean, I'm sure.
Sometimes.
Yeah, tell me about that.
So, yeah, I used every opportunity to practice interview, and that was outside of getting official training.
Yeah.
So, even in front of these kids, in front of like 5-year-olds and 16-year-olds, it was so awkward because I felt like I had everything riding on me, and they're judging me and this and that. But the more I did it, the more I understood my why I should be the next queen. I knew my metrics, I knew my plan. It started to roll off my tongue a bit easier. So
Yeah.
the more you practice the right way, the more you put yourself in the position to do it the right way, the easier it'll come.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I love you saying you got to do it the right way. I
Yes.
recognize those things, knowing your why. We call that a heart story, knowing your metrics. Yep. The promise proof plan. Like, yeah, all of those things matter. And so you got to learn those. You got to know your skill set, but then you've got to practice it even when at first it might not feel great. I'm sure over time you got better and better and better. And so,
Yes.
more and more you were like, okay, I feel like I've got the confidence to actually do this.
Yes.
And then the other thing in point number 2 that I really liked was what you described as people who were with kindness, very well meaning. They would say things like, no matter what, meaning even if you don't win, I'm gonna love you anyway. And you're like, "Rrr," like, don't tell me that. Like, yeah, yeah. So how did you block that out? That I feel like that must have been something you had to practice as well, maybe even over the course of many years, to be able to receive feedback that you did not want to enter your subconscious mind, and then to kind of like reject it. Do you have any ways that you would recommend we practice that?
I think for me at the time, I remember there would be points where people would, you hear it from the higher ups, you hear it from everybody, because that's just what you say to kind of blanket or make rejection a soft landing. But for me, it felt like preparing me for rejection. And for me, I did not come to all this way to just give up before I even tried. So that's kind of where my head was at with that. And also, I remember my mom told me, she was like, Keerah, if you're not going to take it home, to do your best, you already know why you came, don't go. Don't go. If you're not going to give it your all, don't go. So I had those things in the back of my head, and I remember at some point I was like, all right, Keerah, you have to stop allowing this to affect you so much at an internal level, at a heart level, because if you do, you're going to sell yourself short. Don't sell yourself short before you even try, right? If you have done the work and you have prepped, the key is really in your prep. The key when you actually prep is to give yourself that self talk that you are a winner, that you do have what it takes, that you are the next queen, right? So when I was practicing walking, I was practicing thinking like, do you see how I'm turning? Do you see how your next queen is turning? Can you hear how your next queen is speaking in Shakespearean right now? Right? So all of that prep work I did with a winning mindset in mind. So when I actually got to the point of pageant week, I was able to actually, or what's the word I'm looking for? I was able to identify those things that could have caught me up, even though it did for a little bit. I was able to identify those things and kind of toss it out very quickly. Even when I remember when it was time for our onstage question. You do all of this work, you do all of this prep, you have all of these things in mind. And I remember they asked us the question twice. When I was asked the question the first time, I was like, oh my God, do I even speak English? Can you even speak English? What am I going to say? So that's when you kind of fall back again on your prep. You fall back on the bare bones. Answer the question, drive the point to why you should be the next queen, and add some sprinkles on it and get out of there. So really, everything, and I'm sure you've heard this is going to probably be what you hear across the board for this week. Everything goes back to prepping. But I would also add prep the right way and prep believing that you have what it takes. Because once, I mean, you can even draw it back to the Bible. Faith comes by hearing and hearing the word of God. The more you actually believe what you're doing is important, believe what you have someone needs, believe in why your plan is urgent, you will show up being the part. That was a long description.
That's beautiful. No, man, Keerah, I'm cracking up over here. The way you say stuff is a riot. Like you're like, just do I even speak English? Like I don't even know what I'm talking. I know we've all been there. You get that on stage question. You're like, who am I? Where am I? What am I doing here? Why is there a spotlight on me? Like all of a sudden, yeah. And then, but like you said, when that sort of capacity to, you know, a lot of people think like, oh, you got to be ready to think on your feet. But what you're saying, I agree with this, is that it's actually about being able to, when you are bumped off of your axis, like you're standing on stage and they ask your on stage question, then we're all sort of bumped off you fall into your preparation. And so if you haven't been preparing and you haven't been preparing the right way, then all that. And it's so interesting what you said about like those things that people were saying, that at first that you almost like felt them taking root. And then you were like, whoa, hang on. And it was your mom that spoke over you and said, stop it. Like we came here for a reason. Like, let's stick with the plan here. You know, it's awesome that you were able to have her in your corner to be like the voice of reason. That was like, nope, get out cancel all those other thoughts. We're coming home with the crown, you know?
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. And your third point, this is so cute. Like this makes me love you, Keerah. You're like, you make the sauce. I'm like, yes, that's so true. Like there's so much misconception in pageantry that we're supposed to do whatever the girl last year did. And so then when we see the girl last year, we're like, oh, well, she wore blue, so I need to wear blue. Or she put her hair up in a ponytail, so I need to put my hair up in a ponytail. And it's like, like, and I like how you said, did you see how I did that turn? Did you see how your next queen did that turn? Like, it's like to really think those thoughts before they're even happening so that then you portray it that way. Yeah. Wow.
That's how you get that aura. That's the it factor.
Yes. Yeah. You know what? That's right. 100%. It's that. It's the aura that we're attracted to, right? We're like, wow, she's just so confident. It's like, she's got some skills. She put in the work. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She's doing the work to get rid of the things that she doesn't want in her mind and to fill it with the things that she does. And she's not any different than anyone else. Like anyone else, you make the sauce. I love that, Keerah. I love it. I love it. I would love, ladies who are on with us live right now, I would love for you to put in the comments, what is a major takeaway for you? What's something that you learned during this presentation, or maybe an aha moment that you had, that you revisited something that maybe you've learned in the past, but you learned it in a new way today. I would love for you to share that inside of the comments. I'm already seeing some people have already shared this. Erica says, this is so inspirational. I also used to model and I'm entering my first pageant soon. And I definitely realized the difference between modeling and pageantry. So I'm currently working on my pageant walk too. So that's really great. Being Ivy says, being super careful about your thoughts, how they influence behavior as a queen. So true. Nancy says, everything comes back to being preparing right. Yes. That's so good. Yep. Confidence. Oh, E-Bunny says, my confidence and self-worth. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah. These are good. These are good, ladies. So Naomi says, true self-prep means believing that you have what it takes regardless of what the outcomes may be. That's good. Yeah. Allison says, I always get in my head, but I love what you shared about staying true to you and knowing you are prepared. Hina says, being authentic. We are all unique. Jennifer says, I have been really working to get rid of the negative and living into positive. So that's awesome to hear. Okay, Nancy's got a question for you, Keerah. So she is saying, What are some of the mantras that you use? You mentioned the one about, did you see how your queen just turned there? What are some of the other things that you were saying in your mind throughout your competition?
Ooh, I remember there was, okay, so I think this was another way I kind of stayed on track. And I know this is God that gave me this song. I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with the rapper T.I. He has this song called Big Stuff Poppin'. I remember I would literally listen to this song. It was almost like, you know how some people listen to rap when they work out? I listened to this song, Big Stuff Poppin' by T.I., when I was walking in the hallways, when I was practicing, because it was literally speaking to my soul. So that's one thing I did. I will recommend find a playlist, something that you can listen to, even if it's the Bible, if it's affirmations, anything that could kind of reaffirm you, keep you on track. I would definitely recommend that. Also, one mantra that I live by, phrase that I live by is look good, feel good, do good. I knew, especially having been in the makeup industry, modeling industry, that I know how to present myself, right? I was confident in that. So I remember prior to interview, I was getting ready, I was prepping myself, and I put on my suit, I wore white. After I finished, I was like, girl, you look good. And I knew what I was coming in there to say too. I was like, you're literally going to go in there and speak Shakespearean. This is going to literally roll off of your tongue. So look good, feel good, do good, as well as find something to listen to in addition to whatever you got going on. Find somewhere or find something that you can listen to that'll reaffirm you.
That's great. I love that. Yeah. When you said T.I., I immediately was like, bring them out, bring them out, bring them out, bring them.
Yes.
That's my hype song.
You were in go mode. I was in go mode.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Yes, that's so good. Okay, so eBunny is asking about a recommendation. She is a current title holder. Her title is Miss Fashion Global Universe. She's asking for you, what's a recommendation for her to be able to get herself out there and more known? What would you recommend?
I would recommend looking for different community outreach programs. You can look at your YMCA. You can even Google events that are going on that are surrounding your platform, or even if it's not specific to your platform, there are different like food drives. You can check out your local churches, public schools. Look into your holidays, the upcoming holidays, and then search different events that are going on in your city, in your state, and you can definitely get involved that way. And then when you kind of get your foot in the door, you can ask people that may know of different things that you are different events that may be going on that you can volunteer, host at, make an appearance at. So those are ways you can definitely get more involved in your community.
That's great advice. Yeah, I love all those ideas. Paris is asking, she said, I'm kind of clueless where to start in pageantry. She said, what might be a good direction to get started into pageantry?
Well, first, I would say you are in the right place because this is where I started. You are in the right place. I understand how pageantry is. It seems so hard and so difficult. You don't know where to start. I often describe pageantry to people like Tetris or like chess. Each part adds up to a whole. Each part means something, and it's almost like a sophisticated sport. So honestly, I can say you are in the right place. When she opens her inner circle, take her inner circle program, hire a coach, go on her website. She has so many different resources on how to get started, kind of step by step.
Thank you for saying that, Keerah. I appreciate it.
Of course,
Yeah.
I'm serious.
Yeah, that is one of the things that we really pride ourselves on through Win a Pageant is helping people to develop themselves personally and then be able to step onto whatever pageant stage they feel called to. And then it becomes that much better of a match. So I appreciate you saying that. Okay, one more question, and then I've got a question for you just personally. So Hina is asking, what are the qualities that you would love to see for the next title holder as you relinquish your title?
Oh, goodness.
That's a fun one.
Honestly, qualities that I would like to see in the next title holder. I think any judge will say, I've judged pageants as well, someone who is kind, someone who is a true queen meaning that she serves her community, and a queen who is going to do what she says with her platform and with her title. Someone who actually is out in the community and doing things with her title. Someone who is a role model and that people can look up to. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. Someone who is a working queen and does what she says she's going to do.
I hear that over and over and over from national title holders and international title holders saying that we want somebody who's going to do the job and not just going to like sit around and sort of like say they're going to do stuff, but then they just love having the crown on their head and they get nothing done all year long, you know?
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you this question because I'm curious about your experience. And back a couple years ago when Keerah was a part of our program, it was called the Inner Circle. Now it's called the Win a Pageant Academy. What was your experience going through that process of, you know, getting to know yourself and understanding your branding, building your legacy project? Could you share just a bit about what that experience was like for you, you know, being new to the pageant industry, but having probably worked with coaches in other industries? Just what was that like getting started in pageantry?
Honestly, I felt like it was a whole new world. I felt like finally I found someone who can explain this to me, someone who can break this down, who can hold my hand, that could guide me step by step on how to brand myself, on how to craft my plan, on how to present myself on social media, how to like literally win a pageant academy. I'm sorry, I called it Inner Circle last time. Is your one-stop shop. I do have other coaches that I have worked with after I have been in the Win a Pageant Academy, but definitely this program has she literally holds your hand. That's what it's been like for me. I felt like someone saw me. Someone saw me struggling, because the reason why I said I would never get back into pageantry is because I did not understand it. And because I didn't understand it, I couldn't prep. And the reason why, and because I didn't prep is why I bombed my onstage question, is why I didn't do as well as I thought I was going to do. So I literally felt like finally someone sees me, someone understands me, and someone's going to help me to guide me along this process. So it's been an eye opener for me. And even being in the group before I was enrolled in the program, just being in this jumpstart group, I got so many open doors and opportunities by just posting my picture and a bit about my platform. I judged 2 pageants before I even competed at state. I had so many opportunities. That was how I found other people and got so much more in the community. And I learned so much about pageantry. So y'all are in the right spot.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. It is good to know for somebody that's kind of just getting started, like, what am I even supposed to do here? You know, and one of our coaches, Nancy, always says there are no uncoached winners. That everybody who's at the top, they've had coaches. And usually, like to your point, usually not just one, but often many, because you learn something different from everybody. And of course, everybody's style is a little bit different. So you can pick up and find things that can apply to you. And so it's awesome that, you know, for those of us coaches in the pageant industry, it's so fun to be able to see people like you, I worked with over a year ago, and then to watch as God's taking you on a path and landed you to where you are today. It's just so beautiful to be able to be a part of that journey early on. And I'm grateful now to be able to come full circle to hear about this crowning experience for you. So Keerah, thank you so much for giving of your time today and your expertise and for sharing so vulnerably about your experience coming through pageantry. It's awesome to see somebody like you holding this position, particularly in a newer pageant system and in the Ms. category, because it's just such a beautiful thing to have somebody that truly is a role model. You've been a role model. You know, I say frequently, there is no success that happens overnight. You've been doing this work for so long. And as you said, God was like, I've given you the gals already. They're right in front of you. This is your work. This is your legacy. This is where you're intended to be. And now, because you have been trusted with the gals that you were given 5-7 years ago, you were truly faithful in that and obedient to what God had given you and placed on your heart at that time. And now, all these years later, you are now wearing the crown, wearing the sash, holding the national title for something that over the last decade you've been preparing for. And I just want to honor you for being a true role model. Like, not, that's what we all want to do in pageantry. We want to be a role model, but you truly are. The way that you carry yourself, the way that you speak about others, the way that you are totally and authentically you, the way you phrase things just cracks me up. I just absolutely love it. And it makes it so much fun and so easy to talk with you. So I just thank you so much for being the role model that you are. Your title was a perfect selection. So I'm glad that you have the crown.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It means a lot coming from you. And I just appreciate your time. I appreciate the platform and just doing what you're doing, because honestly, I wouldn't be here if I didn't join your program. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Keerah. We love you. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Thank you. Thank you so much. I know she is going to be able to see the comments because she's in our group right now. I'm going to definitely make sure that we post all of your links. They're already in the comments, but I'm going to post them again for you here. I highly recommend that you follow her on Instagram for some fun content that she posts there. And then, of course, her Keerah Yeowang. Oh my gosh, did I get it? Yeowang? Yeowang? Yeowang.
It's all right.
I know the feeling because people goof up my name all the time. But her .com, I've put it in the comments as well, is a great place to connect with her as well. So, Keerah, thank you again for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Bye, my dear. Oh my goodness. Isn't she so normal? Like, don't you just love when queens are just genuine and just show up with true value to add to you? Like the fact that she's just so willing to just spend this hour with us and to be able to just share from her heart, her vulnerable experience. Like, doesn't it just make it so much more real for you to be able to see, hey, maybe you bombed your first onstage interview as well. Or maybe your mom was like, I signed you up for a pageant, like all those stories that she told. I thought, gosh, that's so true. Like that, just to know that, we're not alone in this and that others have had these experiences too, that it doesn't mean that your story is over, but yet you're just at the beginning and God's preparing you for the things that are to come. You know what? Something I love about Keerah, there's something to be said for, and you girls probably know this, there's something to be said for the wisdom that comes from a woman who knows and spends time with God. Can't you just tell the difference between a person who knows and spends time with God and the level of wisdom that they are able to provide others? You know why I think, this is my theory, this is what I think is happening. I truly think that God has given his people like Keerah, like Sandy, the people that you're meeting here in the Jumpstart. I truly believe that God has given those women an elevated status because of the fact that the people that he's given early on to them to be faithful with, God says that when you're faithful with the little, you'll be trusted with more. And I think that this is why these types of women, it's truly because of the wisdom that they carry. And I think, so for you gals watching this video, I want to encourage you that the beginning places of all of this stuff is to know and love God and the plan that he is setting you on. Keerah shared for just briefly on this vision that she had, a big vision. She was starting to make progress on it and something was feeling like off. She wasn't sure what it was. And then finally God said to her, it's this, look over here. Hang on, you need to focus on this. And it was the powder room finishing school, turning it into the charm school and to really be focused on cultivating that. I remember that conversation we had when at the time it was called Inner Circle. It was a much shorter program. Now the Academy is what we have. And we've got lots more, coaches and a lot more insights and stuff. But at that time, I remember having that conversation with Keerah that was really well, you have a Facebook group? Wait, tell me about that. Oh, well, yeah. And then it just seems so casual for her. But that is where God is calling you. And there are things that God has given you. Do you remember? I love the scripture about Moses where God comes to Moses. You probably remember this story, burning bush. And God appears in this burning bush. And you can imagine like a bush catching on fire is crazy. At that time, bush is caught on fire because they're in the middle of the desert. So that wasn't totally unusual. But the difference about this one is that the bush is on fire, but it's not being consumed. It's not burning up and shriveling away. And so Moses was like, something's different about that. And so upon approaching it, God speaks to him and says, here's what you're going to do, Moses. You are going to go back into Egypt and you're going to get my people out of there. And when you read that scripture, and I would encourage you to read that scripture, it's fascinating how Moses is basically telling God, no, I wouldn't be able to do that for this reason. And God's like, okay, I'll solve that reason for you. And he's like, well, yeah, but also this other thing over here. So that would count me out. So and God's like, okay. And he's like, and this other thing. And Moses in that scripture, when you read that, and I encourage you to read it, you will see how many times Moses discounts himself from the exact thing that the God of the universe is telling him that he's going to do. It's a big vision. It's a big, awesome thing. And Moses is over here going, well, I couldn't do that. I couldn't. And finally God says, and I believe in this voice, he goes, well, Moses, what do you have? Okay. And I think it's because Moses is like, well, I don't have any speaking skills. So that's not going to, remember they don't like me there. Cause remember I killed that guy. So, and remember I was rejected from there. I don't have any family left. And it's just, and God is going like, yes. Okay. Well, all right. Let's pretend that's an excuse. All right. Okay, fine. That's fine too. Okay. Moses, what do you have? I want to ask you today. What do you have? What has God given you to care for? What has God given you to be faithful and obedient with? What has God given you to cherish and to develop? And you know what Moses said was like, I have this stick. And I'm imagining Moses as like, in this story, to me, Moses is like a 13-year-old boy. Well, I don't know, the stick. Like, I don't have a stick. Like, all I have is this stick. Like, this is how I'm envisioning Moses, okay, talking to God. And God's like, fine, Moses, what do you have? I'd have this stupid stick. And God's like, watch what I can do. All right, throw that stick on the ground. And he's like, okay, puts it on the ground. And it turns into a snake. And then God says, pick it up. I can only imagine what Moses is thinking right now. Like, he's trying to get out of this whole conversation. He's like, no, God, I don't want to do this stuff. I don't want to be famous. I don't want to do big works. I don't want to have any part of your plan. I'm just not good enough. And he's discounting himself over and over and over and over. And God's like, oh, come on. What do you have? And he's like, oh, I have this stupid stick. I think he was probably thinking that, like, God's going to know this is the only thing I have and this is worthless. And God's like, nothing is worthless with my power attached to it. So he turns it into a serpent, but then he tells him, go grab it. And you know what I love is that Moses actually picked it up. And in my head, the way that the story is going, I'm envisioning that Moses would be like, yikes, and want to run the other direction. Like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. But what I love about Moses, and this is why I believe that God could see, okay, he feels like he's not totally confident yet, but if he can just do this one thing, just pick it up. And he picked it up, and as he did, it turned back into his staff. And that's when he then agreed to go on this mission with Christ, with God at the time. And I thought, goodness gracious, what an epic scene between the God of the universe and how many of us discount ourselves from the very plan that God is calling us to. And what I love about what Keerah shared with us today is that these skills that even that she gained, that she was sharing specifically, are skills she had to actually learn. You know, sometimes we're just like, dear Jesus, just let me win. In Jesus' name, amen. And it's like, well, God's thinking here going like, okay, well, what have you done? Like, I can't give you more territory if you are not going to be faithful with what I've given you. God's given you resources, okay? He has. For some of you, he's given you time. Maybe not a lot of it, but what are you doing with your extra time? Are you sitting around watching Netflix all night long? Or are you watching training programs? Are you leaning into the things that God is calling you to do? Are you getting wisdom and knowledge from others that have gone before you? That's what you need to be doing. You need to be leaning into your personal and professional development, right? That's going to be the thing that grows the skill set. People want to just be magically confident with the interview. You're not going to be. In our academy program, we make everybody do on-stage questions because we had a few gals who were practicing their on-stage answers inside of our group. And they were, if I could be frank, screwing it up. And we all screw stuff up the first few times we do it. That's how it's supposed to be. That's how you learn. And like, what I love about the women that are inside of the academy and like Keerah and Sandy, what I love is that they are not above being coachable. To be coachable is allowing yourself to say, mold me, help me. I want to learn this. You're not going to start your journey. You're not going to improve in your journey if you keep showing up thinking you got all the answers. And you're like, I've got all the answers. Here I am. Well, that's fine if that's what you think, but then you're not going to be willing to learn anything new. And if you're not willing to learn anything new, you're never going to really be able to grow. And if you're never going to really be able to grow, then how is God expected to give you any more territory than you already have? In order to gain more, you have to be faithful and obedient and see fruit in the things that you've been given. Some of you are given titles at large to go on to national or international pageants. And then you show up at the pageant and you've not really done a whole darn thing about it. And you're expecting to win the state title, you're expecting to win the national pageant. Well, what have you done with your state title? If you haven't covered extensive ground as a state title holder, why would you be expected to be now given the whole country to care for? What kind of queen doesn't care for her territory? If you are the queen, you are intended to care for your territory. In the academy, we require that all legacy projects be what we describe as scalable, meaning it can't be something that is limited to just your own little town. If you want to be a national title holder or an international title holder, your legacy project needs to be something that can be scaled so that anybody across the entire world could be a part of your program, can learn from you. That's what that's the difference between a legacy, one of them, between a legacy project and a platform. A platform you could just do in your local area. Your legacy project is scalable. Just like Keerah mentioned, you're going to be able to do whatever your legacy project is for even more people. Now, you still got to cut your teeth on the small group. You got to prove that you can get fruit and that you can be faithful with what you have been given in order to take it to the next level. And you know what I loved is that she shared that very personal story about how people would say, no matter what, I want to give you a strategy right now that I teach the ladies inside of the academy. Okay, we've got 7 minutes to do this, okay? So take good notes, all right? So there is something to be said about protecting the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is often the things that gets in our way of our outstanding success. And when we appease the subconscious mind and sort of give it like a pat on the back and set it aside, it's allowed to kind of like get that piece out of the way, okay? So you know how you show up to your pageant, and you may have been here before. You get to your orientation. You were previously very excited and thrilled, and you couldn't wait. And you get to orientation, you start looking around, and you're like, wow, all these women are so beautiful. Oh my gosh, they all have great hair. Wow, their pedicures are perfect. Oh my goodness, I love her outfit. Wow, her shoes are so great. Oh my goodness, who did her makeup? Wow, her eyelashes are so perfect. Oh my gosh, that girl has perfect skin. And you start just seeing all these little details in everybody else. And you kind of forget what you bring to the table. And in that moment is when the little seeds of doubt take root. And those little seeds of doubt, like it's like right before you get out of the car and your dad's like, no matter what, honey, I'm going to love you even if you don't win. And you're like, oh, thanks, Dad. Well, he's kind of like what Keerah was saying, like, is he saying like I might not win? Right? That's the thought that comes across your mind is like, so wait a second. So maybe I'm not going to win? Does he not believe in me? Right? All those things. Now, he probably really does believe in you. He's just scared for himself too. So he's like, it's going to be fine. Like he wants you to calm down. He wants you to just be centered and be able to just go in the, okay. Here's how you do it, all right? I call it the letter to yourself. That's simple, okay? Before you start your pageant preparation, meaning I'm talking this is 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, a year before you are competing, okay? Don't do this 2 weeks before your pageant, okay? It'll go backwards, all right? What I want you to do is write a letter to yourself, like a letter, like write, Dear Alicia. And in this letter, I want you to write to yourself as though you did not win the pageant, right? As though you didn't win it. You lost. You lost the pageant, and you're writing a letter to that version of yourself who just lost. And you're reminding her why she's incredible. You're like, you worked so hard during this. I'm so proud of you for the efforts that you've made with your legacy project. I want to remind you the things that you are great at. I want to remind you all the things now that you get to have as a result of not having won this pageant. And here's a few people to call. Here, I would recommend doing a spa day. Just relax, be easy on yourself, whatever. You're going to write this letter to yourself, okay? Then you're going to fold it up. You're going to seal it. And you're going to put it like in the back of your sock drawer, okay? Where things go to disappear, okay? You're going to just get rid of it. That is going to serve as the safety net for your subconscious mind should you not win, okay? From that moment on, as soon as you seal it and tuck it away, forget all about it. Your subconscious will remember that it's there, so your subconscious will feel safe just in case you don't win. It's going to feel safe to know that you've got a safety net. But from that point on, you got to coach your subconscious mind that you are about to win this thing. In terms of your schedule moving forward, how are you planning your schedule for after the pageant? In terms of the plane ticket that you purchased for that, if you got to stay the next day to do headshots, well, then don't book a flight out at 8 a.m. the next day. You're going to have to book that at 11 or at 1, okay? So you don't have to change your flight after you win, okay? Everything that you do from that moment in, you got to go all in. And just know that you don't have to create safety nets for yourself. Like, oh, I'm going to have a safety net of, well, I know that they love me no matter what. Or, hey, what if you don't win? Don't forget, if you don't win, we're going to take that trip. So you could get excited about that instead. You're like, nope, I'm winning. And it's okay because your subconscious mind has that note, okay? I would love for you ladies to do that. You don't ever have to share that note with anybody. You don't have to share with anybody. It's just for you. And I tell you what, this is what tends to happen is that when my clients win, they forget they even wrote that note. They don't even remember it. And months go by and they're like, oh, that's so funny. I remember I wrote that note. I wonder what that even said. And then they pull it out. But if you were to not win, you would be able to pull this note out and you would be able to see your value. You would be able to see your worth. You would be able to love yourself. You'd be able to see the hope and the future and the potential and all the learning and all the things that are to come. It's hard to not win your pageant. It's hard. I've been there many, many times, and it is not an easy experience. So you do need to have something to protect your subconscious mind in order to be able to block out all the possibilities you might not win, in order to allow in the things that support the fact that you will win. And it will allow you to be much more confident and much more proactive in how you prepare for your pageant. Thanks again for being on with us live or watching the replay, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.